Change is one of the most profound experiences of human existence, and it is rarely neutral in the way it touches our lives. When change arrives, it does not simply alter circumstances, it reshapes the very fabric of our identity, our routines, and our sense of belonging. This is why it so often feels like loss. We are not just adjusting to something new, we are saying goodbye to something old, and that goodbye carries weight. The familiar patterns we rely on, our daily habits, our relationships, our environments, become part of who we are, and when they are disrupted, it feels as though pieces of ourselves are being taken away. That sensation of loss is not imagined, it is deeply real, because change forces us to confront the impermanence of everything we hold dear. From a psychological perspective, change is processed in much the same way as grief. Transitions, whether chosen or imposed, involve endings. A career shift may open doors to new opportunities, but it also closes the door on colleagues who became confidants and on routines that gave structure to our days. Relocating to a new city may promise adventure, but it also means leaving behind the streets that carried our memories, the places where we laughed, cried, and grew. Even joyous milestones such as marriage or parenthood carry subtle losses, the loss of independence, the loss of spontaneity, the loss of a former self who existed before the new role took shape. The mind interprets these changes as farewells, and farewells naturally evoke sorrow. What we resist is not only the uncertainty of the future but the ache of leaving behind the past. Our identities are woven into the fabric of what we know, and when change demands that we step forward, it feels as though we are leaving fragments of ourselves behind. Biology reinforces this experience. The human brain is wired to seek predictability, because predictability equals safety. Patterns allow us to anticipate outcomes and feel secure in our environment. When change disrupts those patterns, the brain perceives it as a threat, triggering stress responses that make even small adjustments feel overwhelming. A shift in routine, a new environment, or an unfamiliar responsibility can provoke anxiety because the body reacts as though something vital has been taken away. This is why even seemingly minor changes, like a new schedule or a different workplace layout, can feel disproportionately unsettling. Over time, the brain adapts, rewiring itself to accept the new reality, but the initial reaction is almost always resistance. That resistance is rooted in the perception of loss, and it explains why change, even when beneficial, can feel so destabilizing at first. The cultural dimension of change adds yet another layer. Societies often celebrate beginnings, new jobs, new homes, new relationships, but they rarely acknowledge the endings that accompany them. Rituals of closure are often missing, leaving individuals to process their sense of loss in silence. Without recognition of what has been left behind, the grief of change can feel isolating. People may wonder why they feel sadness during a time that is supposed to be joyful, not realizing that the sadness is a natural response to the invisible losses embedded in every transition. This lack of cultural acknowledgement deepens the perception that change is something to endure rather than something to embrace, reinforcing the idea that loss is the dominant experience. Yet within this discomfort lies the paradox of change. It is not only an ending but also a beginning, not only a loss but also a gateway to growth. To gain something new, we must inevitably surrender something old, and that surrender is what hurts. It forces us to confront the impermanence of life, to acknowledge that nothing can be held forever. The pain of change is the pain of impermanence, but it is also the seed of transformation. When we grieve what is gone, we create space for what is to come. The loss is real, but it is not the whole story, it is the threshold to renewal. Without endings, there can be no beginnings, and without loss, there can be no growth. This duality is what makes change so difficult yet so essential. It wounds us with endings, yet heals us with beginnings. Ultimately, change feels like loss because it is loss, the loss of what was, the loss of who we were in that moment, the loss of a chapter that cannot be rewritten. But it is also a reminder that life is a continuous unfolding, a series of evolutions that demand we let go in order to move forward. The uniqueness of change lies in its duality. It takes away but also gives, It closes but also opens, it diminishes but also expands. And perhaps the most profound truth is that without the sting of loss, we would never recognize the value of what we had, nor the potential of what we might become. Change is the price we pay for growth, and though the cost is high, the reward is a life that is not stagnant but ever renewing, ever opening, ever becoming. In the end, change feels like loss because it reminds us that nothing is permanent, but it also teaches us that impermanence is the very condition that makes growth, renewal, and transformation possible.